Donald Trump has just announced, the president of the United States, that he's looking at suing Disney. Yep. And so Disney's gearing up for a big court battle. You know, they already did this. So this is like round 2. This is Disney versus Trump 2.0. And I have a feeling he may get even more money out of him this time. I mean, you're going to see Trump with the biggest library that anyone's ever had, because all these companies keep slandering him, slandering MAGA, and, you know, free speech all you want. Let me just point out, there is a distinction, and I know this better than anyone, because guess what? I've worked in network television, and I have worked in broadcast television, and I have worked in cable television. I even work right over here. What do you know? In streaming land, which is way more fun. But I'm telling you, there are rules. The FCC governs broadcast television, and that is the reason why you can't go 3 years, Jimmy Kimmel, with only one conservative guest on your show. You know, that stuff catches up to you, and I realize past FCC chairmans never wanted to do a darn thing about it, but guess what? This is a whole different game and a whole different crew, and they are so willing, ready and able to go after Jimmy, to go after Bob Iger. And by the way, the shareholders are sitting there saying, please, please, please bring it on, because this is not a good CEO for our company. Not a good one indeed. Here is what the president is saying, and I quote, "I think we're going to test ABC out on this. Let's see how we do. Last time I went after them, they gave me $16 million. This one sounds even more lucrative." Now, of course, remember that earlier settlement that came from Georgie Poo, Stephanopoulos, on his weekend show. How on earth you put a host of a weekend show that's supposed to be unbiased, right? That's supposed to be a neutral show called This Week, their main signature political show. And you get little Georgie out there who's a former PR person. Yeah, former PR person. He was the flack for Bill Clinton. I mean, and you can go on all you want. Kayleigh McEnany, Dana over at Fox. Here's the difference. That's not broadcast. It's cable. So cable can be as opinionated as it wants to be. In broadcast, you're actually supposed to be something different. You're supposed to be right down the middle of the road. Go back to the 1933 Communications Act. I mean, the idea that you even have a former flack for Bill Clinton running your signature political show, that is just bizarre. By the way, the guy's like a total hog, because not only does he do that show, he has to do Good Morning America as well all week long. So he gets lots of airtime. Here's my advice. Disney, just put little Georgie, and he's little, believe me, he's very, very little. Put him on GMA, Good Morning America. Let him do the cooking segments. That's fine. And actually leave the politics to people who might actually be journalists and not so biased one way or the other. Anyway, Georgie Poo, he had to settle with Donald Trump, of course, because he called him some pretty atrocious things, and Donald Trump sued him for libel, and that resulted in a $16 million settlement. So now they're going back for round 2. Here is a report, the original report that actually came just late last night out of Lucas Shaw, who's a good reporter. I used to put him on TV when I was at Bloomberg Television. He's got kind of the inside scoop on Disney, and I'm sure Disney has him to a certain extent in their back pocket. So they're putting out a message. We're ready. We're ready. It's game on. We're ready to take on the president of the United States in this. They are gearing up because they are expecting he will retaliate. Well, he said he would, right? He said, well, this is going to be worth even more than $16 million. This might be fun, because what they did was pretty darn wrong. I'll tell you this. He doesn't even have to sue them. I would say Erica Kirk should absolutely sue them. Turning Point should absolutely sue them. The Republican Party should sue them. I mean, because it really was disgusting what he said. And he said that this kid that shot Charlie Kirk was one of MAGA's own. Okay, so MAGA has every right. And perhaps Donald Trump, as head of the party, sees this as an opportunity, yes, to sue them. You know, of course. I mean, again, Erica, in her husband's, memory, should absolutely be able to do that. And the Republican Party with Donald Trump should be able to do that. And before you sit there and tell me this is free speech, blah, 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 I'm not buying Ted Cruz on this one, okay? Teddy, you never worked in broadcast TV. And maybe you don't know this. I know you're really smart. You went to Harvard Law and the whole bit. But I have worked at CBS Evening News. I have worked actually as a commentator at ABC World News Tonight and Good Morning America. I told you this, right? Georgie P would always put me in this little tiny chair because I'm rather tall, 5'7". You add some 4-inch high heels to that, and boy, he's like up to here on me. So I'd sit in the little tiny chair like I was a little kid looking up to Georgie. Anyway, so I've done that. I've worked at the Today Show, NBC Nightly News. I was an anchor on CNBC. I was an anchor on Fox Business, an anchor on Fox News. The reality is I've seen it all, and I'm over here right now in streaming land. So when I worked in broadcast, and this was a while back, this was back in the day when we actually cared about presenting both sides. We made a concerted effort to do that. I mean, I'd have like 50 people looking at my scripts. Okay, did she say this, and then that, and then this, and then that? And it was very careful. I mean, they had their biases for sure, and I can go on about that all day, but there was an attempt made to offer both sides. You didn't have to do that in cable. And so it's fine for Fox to go out and hire former flags from the Trump administration or anywhere else, but it's a little weird that ABC does that. It's a little weird that this week, their signature political show, I'm telling you, just let them do the cooking segments. Just give him a box to stand on, okay? He can do cooking segments, and they'll make crepes together. Unbelievable. Okay, so the company had been anticipating this per Lucas's story there in Bloomberg. And this is even actually more remarkable. So they were anticipating this. Bob Iger was anticipating this. Dana Walden, whom he's courting as his successor, but Bob really doesn't court anyone as his successor, so that tells you she's probably rather weak just because he's never going to put anyone strong in around him. Just look what he did to Bob Chapek. Anyway, it says the company had been anticipating the Trump administration might go after its broadcast TV licenses even before ABC's Late Show host made his controversial comments. Okay, so here's a question for you. If you are a good manager, this is a test, guys, okay? Let me know in the comments. I want you to tell me what you think. A little test here. If you are running a company, big company, small company, doesn't matter, and you realize that you might be in a little bit of trouble over something because, it turns out, you're not servicing all your customers like the FCC expects you to because you're supposed to service those communities, right? And if you're not actually offering both viewpoints, you're really not serving the communities. If you know this, if you know you're in trouble, then don't you think you might be a little bit more hands-on? Especially after a tragedy like the country went through with Charlie Kirk, when you could see all the vigils happening all over the country and the young people crying their eyes out and people just so moved. Don't you think that you might pick up the phone and say, hey, Jimmy, what are you planning tonight? Okay, maybe you don't want to call Jimmy. I get it. He's such a cranky puss. Did we see this the other day? I call him Grumpy Cat. Total grumpy cat because he's just insufferable. Ooh, where is that good little video? It was him walking through the airport. Ooh, I found it. Here we go.
Honestly, just leave me alone.
I'm from New York, man.
I don't care.
How did Obama do?
Listen, I'm not interested in this. How many times do I have to tell you?
Okay. He's just a grumpy cat. So Bob, I get it. You don't want to call the grumpy cat. You wouldn't call his producer? His associate producer? His assistant producer? I mean, you can go right on down the list. We can go down to the PA, but he had 200 producers working on this thing, and nobody actually had the common decency or good sense to say, gee, Jimmy, what you're saying is not true. And maybe you shouldn't do it because it's not true. And by the way, this is kind of raw and very emotional. So they knew they were in trouble. They didn't do squat about it. They didn't, Dana, neither Bob, bothered to pick up the phone and figure out what the segment was about. I mean, look at how crazy it's gotten. Just look at The View. I mean, great example. You look at The View and the nonsense they've been spewing over there nonstop. We've had to listen to it, right? For the last however many years. I was talking to someone the other day, someone pretty liberal, and she's like, why is that show on television anymore? Like, who watches that show? I don't know who watches that show. I mean, we play occasional clips for you here because it's important to understand what the other side is saying, but they never do make any sense. I mean, there was that fear that Whoopi was going on about how they were going to deport her and all non-whites.
All of you. Talking about you and us. He's not going to, say, oh, you're with a white guy, I'm going to keep you from being deported. No, he's going to deport you and put the white guy with someone else. The man is out there.
He's also So you said recently that you thought that you, as an outspoken critic, could be a target yourself. Some people think that sounds overdramatic, but I'm right there with you. I think that he is so vindictive that he will go after, however he has to, through the IRS maybe, or even through sponsors to get us off the air, maybe, or you. Yeah. How seriously should we be taking that?
Well, so I was asked, am I worried about me? And my answer was, I'm worried about all of us. I'm no more worried about me than I am worried about everybody in the country. I think it's bad to have somebody saying, give me as much power as you can in this country so I can use it to go after other Americans. So I can use it to go after these subhuman internal enemies and I'll destroy them. Like, that's just not a good system for anybody. And I don't think anybody's safe if that's the sort of basis on which he wants to get more power.
Remember when
Don't worry, Rachel, he's not coming for you. Because you see, the FCC doesn't actually govern your show. Again, you're over in cable land. You know who's coming for you? Investors. Investors want no part of your $25 million salary that you allegedly are getting, which is obviously, well, clearly too much for one show a week. No, Rachel, you'll be out on your own because nobody wants to pay that money unless you can somehow deliver some ratings, which might actually require you to work 5 days a week. So Rachel's a different story. Joy, on the other hand, she could be facing some challenges. The View absolutely could face cancellation. It's something that perhaps Bob Iger should have anticipated beforehand. He should have. This is like when the inmates are running the asylum, right? If you are a good manager, you read the tea leaves and you say, hey guys, let's take down the temperature. Like, this is an important thing to do for the country right now. And maybe talk about a few other things. I realize Ana Navarro, she is not going to talk entertainment news. She has no interest in talking about Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce. She has no interest in talking about anything Hollywood. That was what that show was originally supposed to be. Or what about health? What about health and wellness? I mean, what about, hey, here's an idea. How about a little personal finance, right? Because, maybe women sitting home watching that show at 11 a.m. could learn a little bit about balancing the checkbook, household finances, stuff like that. That's what the show was created to do. And instead, you turned it into an arm of the Democrat Party. So absolutely, Donald Trump can go after you for that. He can go after you for Jimmy Kimmel. Erica Kirk can go after Jimmy Kimmel for what he said. And I would just say, Disney, get ready, because you thought 16 million was a lot. You might be facing a whole lot more. The other thing you're going to be facing is the reality that none of you are going to be there. I don't think Disney survives this. I actually think that, I think the company survives it. I don't think Bob Iger survives this. I don't think Jimmy Kimmel survives this. I don't think The View survives this. I don't think Dana Walden survives this. I mean, already the sharks are circling, and you saw Michael Eisner, who I used to work with actually at CNBC. He had a show, it was like once a week on CNBC. I used to host the top-rated show at 11 a.m., 11 to 12 Eastern time on CNBC. And what I would say is that Eisner is like, what the heck? Michael Eisner is like, who doesn't stand up for their talent? So you see, they're getting this from both sides, right? The boycott's coming from both sides. The left is sort of freaking out now because now that Jimmy's back on the air, they want to kind of rescind all those boycott things. But I would just say, you guys, your first instinct was right. You got a lousy manager, okay? So you should be mad that he took Jimmy off. But my point being, your talent, your Jimmy Kimmel, if you can call him talent, never should have been saying those things to begin with. And if you had decent management in place, that actually wouldn't have happened. You get shareholder lawsuits. A lot of them. You get people that don't want to take their kids to Disney movies because they're so wokeified and ridiculous, and we get all kinds of characters that, we could have discussions that we don't want to have to discuss, right? With a 6-year-old. Thank you very much. You've got Snow White that just cost you a whole lot of money. You got problems, Disney. The Marvel franchise, they've ruined that one. So they've also got this. Bob Iger's got the National Football League media rights for the Hulu, Fubo, whatever TV merger, and the FCC is going to have to decide on that. If I were you, I would not really be looking to tick off the FCC right about now. But again, I'm just a sensible person that sees the handwriting on the wall, and you can stand up for what you believe in, but if what you believe in is saying horrible things about somebody that half the country considered a hero, a true hero, if you think that's okay, we get some bigger issues to discuss because you're obviously not a very nice person. So former Disney chief Michael Eisner, I mentioned him, right? He's publicly out there blasting Iger. Like, what the hell are you doing with the company that I gave you something great and look what you turned it into. Quote, he wrote on X, "Where has all the leadership gone?" Suspending indefinitely of Kimmel immediately after the chairman of FCC's aggressive yet hollow threatening of Disney is yet another example of out of control intimidation. So here's the thing. Like, I actually don't think that the FCC was the one that did this. I think the fact that you had Nexstar and Sinclair pulling, that's like 20% of the affiliates, and saying we don't want anything to do with this show under these circumstances, that's actually what was the impetus to all that. Granted, Brandon didn't, pull any punches. I mean, you look at what Brandon said, and it was pretty significant. He went on with my friend Benny and said basically Kimmel's conduct is pretty darn sick. And you know what? Brandon was right.
When you look at the conduct that has taken place by Jimmy Kimmel, it appears to be some of the sickest conduct possible. As you've indicated, there are avenues here for the FCC. So there are some ways in which I need to be a little bit careful, because we could be called ultimately to be a judge on some of these claims that come up. But I don't think this is an isolated incident. I mean, you go back to Representative Swalwell, and he had, emphasizing that Charlie Kirk's killer was a straight white male from a Republican family that voted for Donald Trump. In some quarters, there's a very concerted effort to try to lie to the American people about the nature, as you indicate, of one of the most significant, newsworthy public interest acts that we've seen in a long time. And what appears to be an action by Jimmy Kimmel to play into that narrative that this was somehow a MAGA or Republican motivated person. If that's what happened here with his conduct, that is really, really sick. And I've been very clear from the moment that I have become chairman of the FCC, I want to reinvigorate the public interest. And what people don't understand is that the broadcasters, and you've gotten this right, are entirely different than people that use other forms of communication. They have a license granted by us at the FCC, and that comes with it an obligation to operate in the public interest. And we can get into some ways that we've been trying to reinvigorate the public interest in some changes.
So there, he said it. Okay, he said it. And as I said, the sharks are out for blood right now with former CEO trying to take Bob Iger down. He may just do it. I'll tell you, investors aren't one bit happy with any of this. But you heard what Brennan said. In other words, again, you have very different interests there. Cable's totally different. If Jimmy wants to go do his show, like Greg Gutfeld has a show that's actually funny on Fox at night, he can go do it on MSNBC, or he can do it on CNN. And you're able to do that. Or you can come over here and come up against me. I'll welcome the competition. Do you know that we have over 1 million subs now? I mean, this is crazy. I just kind of started doing this show a couple of years ago. And you guys came, and you kept coming back and coming back and coming back. So thank you for that. And if you haven't subscribed and hit the bell, please do me that favor. One of these days, we're going to get an exact time. But, for now, you're going to have to bear with me. I got 3 kids and a lot of news. It takes a lot of time to get all this news into the show, believe it or not. So you got Eisner angling for Iger. Bob Iger, he doesn't want to let go of that job. And I know I'm giving you some inside baseball. I probably shouldn't share this, but who cares at this point? It was public knowledge. I mean, I would have the booker come over to me before I'd have him on my show at Bloomberg and say, please don't ask. Don't ask about retirement. And then I'd hear from the person who was the PR person. I forget her name. And she would always send me, so you're not going to ask about, succession plans or retirement or anything, right? I think occasionally I did just for fun. Anyway, he doesn't like to talk about that, even though he really ought to be planning his retirement. When he was actually retired, he wasn't really retired, so he turned the reins over to Bob Chapek, but apparently kept his own office and used to hold big lunches and meetings with all the other executives. So the poor other Bob could never get to first base because he had Bob Iger waiting in the wings, ready to destroy him at any second until he could eventually take over again. Listen, I'll tell you, Nelson Peltz was right. Nelson Peltz, he called it. Get rid of Iger, change the company, get rid of all these stupid sequels, get rid of your wokeness, improve yourselves, get rid of your management, clean house, start over. But they can't do it. And so now they're facing boycotts from all sides. And isn't it just grand? John Oliver, another one over at HBO. You get the stock getting killed. I mean, as the market doubles, right? Disney's dead money in the water. So do I feel bad for them? No, and no, because this is a guy who actually did some pretty gross stuff. Let's just consider, I know that America's rejecting him. I know the Sinclair and Nexstar, they're not going to take him back. But think about this. I mean, Andrew Colvett, who was Charlie's producer, was going on about how you had this emotional reaction from Jimmy. Jimmy was emotional about his own career getting taken out. He never apologized to Erica Kirk and to the Kirk family. He never apologized to MAGA. He never said he was wrong. He talked about how it was interpretation and this, that, and the other. And you know what? Jimmy gets to live another day, literally. And if it doesn't work out for him on ABC, and I don't think it will, he gets to go to MSNBC or CNN or, over here on YouTube, and he can do his show there. Rob Schneider, comedian, saying the exact same thing. That was not an apology, okay? That was bad. That was bad stuff, Jimmy boy. And we know you're grumpy cat, but enough, okay? You're a ratings disaster. You had a one-night stand. You looked good for one night. You got a lot of YouTube views. I mean, even I watched you on YouTube because I wanted to see what you had to say. You got like 6 million views, people tuning in, friends of mine that would never watch Jimmy Kimmel, let alone stay up that late to watch this guy, this loser. No, they watched just to see if he could do the decent thing, and he couldn't. He couldn't. So it's game over. You're getting sued. You are in a lot of trouble. A lot of trouble, believe me. We've written on this at 76research.com, my company. Use code word dollar, if you're interested in investing, and I hope you are, because it's really important to take care of yourself and to take care of your family and to take ownership, right, of your own direction in life. Use dollar, DOLLAR. I would not advise buying Disney right now, but we do have companies that we like, and we do tell you. So take a look at those because a lot of them do super well. The other thing I just want to mention is, we're coming out of this cancel culture. I'll tell you, it was bad. And then, you get the left saying, oh, my gosh, we're getting canceled by the right. And it's like, excuse me, this is nothing compared to what we went through. I mean, I had friends that couldn't get bank accounts. I told you guys my own story. I had a bank that kept calling me. I have had this account since going back to like 1997, 1998, a lot of years, right? They should know who I am. And yet they would call me every couple months with all these suspicious questions. And then all of a sudden it stopped. In November, it stopped after Donald Trump was elected. So this is actually kind of an important issue. I want to bring it up. I want you to go look at this at forfreemarkets.com, because under the Obama and Biden administrations, what did you see? Regulators pressuring banks to close accounts for industries and for individuals that they didn't like, people that they politically didn't agree with. And that was wrong. You know it was wrong. I know it was wrong. They know it was wrong. Well, President Trump, thankfully, is taking decisive action in this area. He's not going to let it happen. This whole debanking thing, this has to end. And so he wants your help in ending it. This is why Americans for Free Markets is thanking President Trump for all of his efforts. Together we can stand for freedom. Together we can stand against this insane cancel culture that was so horrible for so many of us for so long. We need clarity. We need consistency. We need accountability in this financial regulatory process. So please make sure that abuse never happens again. Join me by going to FORFreemarkets.com.